later in the match. We're going to do a wonderful game of Rochambeau to figure out who plays first this time. And it's Pop-Tarts. So, once again, Pop-Tarts will decide what kind of momentum is going to be played. He's going to start at the bottom, a very aggressive move, and puts in the middle. This is a very risky maneuver for him. However, it's even more risky for Scats. Scats is responding with a very conservative option at the bottom. However, by eliminating a middle piece, he's actually going to go for option denial, which doesn't matter a lot in the early game. But in the late game, when there are less and less easy pieces to grab, this is a very effective and very long-term maneuver. Now, judging by how they are placing the blocks, most of the weight is going to be on the left side, but it's going to be less stable on the right, which means that they are generally going to favor the right side. This is bad for Scats because since he is on the right side, he does not have the proper perception to see this indifference. However, Scats surprises me by putting a block over the blank spot. Well, since this is the first tournament of Jenga, we have no actual rules. In fact, one of the clauses for the rules was made after the second round. That clause has not been enacted during this, however.
We have one hand on it, right?
Yes, one hand on it at once. Since I generally referee this, and I'm instead commentating, I guess I was not able to catch that. The rule is that when it is not your turn, you cannot touch the table, and when it is your turn, only one hand at a time. The clause is that, well, the general rule is that when you are moving a piece, and you only move it partially out, which means that the piece never left contact with the tower, you can back out at any point. You cannot put that block back, but you can keep it there and decide to do another piece. The clause is that you cannot do this for the bottom. The reason for this is because if you leave one of the pieces on the side at a 45-degree angle, and then the other one at a better angle, then that means that the bottom is more stable, which gives the person who moved it a much more definitive advantage. So the clause is that if you want to move the bottom, you are dedicated to it. Slowly getting rid of the bottom. This is very risky. Makes for a very short game. Oh, Pop-Tart shaking it. Honestly, this is making me very nervous. I don't think he's going to get that. Oh, but he does get the piece. Puts it on top. It is now leaning to the right, towards Pop-Tart. Oh! And Pop-Tart takes it. And that was Jenga Grand Finals, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. And with that, Smash of Ages is wrapped up. We might be able to get a friendly game of Jenga going. However, Pop-Tart has taken the first Jenga tournament. I'm okay with a friendly, but Pop-Tart wins. I'm not gonna let those shenanigans go. Like, he won twice.
Unofficial term. That's why.
Unofficial term?
He's the winner.
Too many blocks?
We play with an unofficial rule.
Alright. Well, good news and bad news, ladies and gentlemen. Because there were too many blocks, we are redoing the second match, because the match that you just saw is now the first match. Pop-Tart gets nothing but honor, respect, and maybe a heart attack. But hopefully not. Resetting for the second match. Now, Pop-Tart actually could have taken the tournament entirely by letting the first game slide. However, he has chosen the honorable way
Please tell them about the pastry contest.
and letting him take it. Tower is set, being placed in the middle. Scats gets the first move. Scats is taking a much more conservative approach than what I'm generally used to, taking the side. Now, taking a side at a higher part is a lot riskier. However, at the bottom, since it generally leads to either a 2-space 2 setup or just a flat 1 space, it is less risky. The 2-space 2 setup is actually much riskier at the beginning because it forces 2 blocks instead of just 1 to be forced into that position, which means that just 1 block and only having 1 block on there lets 2 blocks be moved to the top instead of just 1. Scat's taking a middle piece. Pop-Tart getting up. And just like that, pushes it to just 1 block in the middle, showcasing what I had just explained. And with that, ooh, Pop-Tart being very aggressive and pulling out the last piece. Now there is a 2-1-1-1 setup. Which means that this has the possibilities, depending on how they stack the top, to either being a very long game or a very short game. Pop-Tart being very cautious about pulling this piece out. But pulls it out anyway. Wait, guys. Center that. The top piece. Play stop to center the top piece. And side option taken. However, given the very... what is the word I'm looking for? Helter-skelter way that the top is being created, I do not suspect that the top will be able to hold weight for much longer. Or not as long as before. Scat scanning the sides, planning his moves a little bit further ahead, taking a side piece. The weight of the top finally showing its size. And Pop-Tart forcing another 1 block. Pop-Tart, unbeknownst to him, is slowly pushing the tower closer and closer to him, possibly due to fatigue. This has been a very long tournament. Scat's taking more and more conservative options as he goes along. He must be really putting his first 2 losses to heart, even if 1 didn't count. Takes a middle block this time. Oh!
I was hoping it was going.
The first one didn't count, so it's 1-1.
Score is now 1-1.
Too many blocks. So I'd rather throw it out entirely.
So, to recap the last match, they were playing for the long game. However, unbeknownst to Pop-Tart, he was slowly pushing the tower towards him, which destabilized it and made his later moves much harder.
There's a minimum timer. It has to be at least 10 minutes before use of air gun or air nail guns are allowed. Yeah, see, he's trying, like, he's making it because of how use of industrial epoxy allowed.
Jenga tower being reset for a game that requires concentration and a sure hand. This long tournament, which has gone on for 9 hours, must really be taking a toll on the players. I've just been told by Pop-Tart that this tournament has been going on for 3 fortnights. Not entirely sure how accurate that is. However, it most certainly does feel that way, as dinner was not available to most of us. Still enjoying ourselves, though. About 19 people entered Jenga. Only one dropped. So this was a very, very healthy, very hype tournament, exceeding everyone's expectations. This is game 3. 23 people? Alright. 23 people, and then one person did not show up. That's 22. Scat's going for the middle option. And Pop-Tart also going for the middle option. This means that this is going to be a very short game. Not because that the top is going to be very unstable, or that they're going to run out of options before this game can reach true length. Pop-Tart has gained a shout out from the stream. Very nice of them. Distracting them. Taking the middle option again. Now, that block fell, but only because it was from his hand, and it was that only one that he already chose. So, it is legal.
It is like their worst weapon this last time. You guys have 5 blinds. No, this is good. Trust me. It's like cherry candy.
Scat's taking the side option this time. And it seems it is a characteristic of these games that they make the top very unstable. Whether or not that's the fatigue or that's just their play style is unknown. However, it leaves very serious implications for the long-term goals of their game. Candy was passed out, giving a small reprieve to both the minds and the stomachs of these players. Scat's turn, looking at it. Now, Scat's might look like he is simply scanning for the best one. However, from experience, from watching him, I can tell that he is actually noting which ones are weak and then taking the one that is the weakest. Meaning that he's just making harder and harder pulls for Pop-Tart.
Because all those people that are like me and they're like, what does that mean? What does that stand for? Who's that
Best scene there. Scats is scanning the game, setting up longer goals for himself, possibly the entire game. Skats is a very good player in this. Pop-Tart certainly has his hands full. But Pop-Tart is definitely not a pushover either. His aggressive behavior certainly leaves his opponents with dwindling and dwindling options. Taking A. I do believe that was a middle piece. Yes, a middle piece. That leaves about three or four two-space 2 rows. And Skats is making a 5th. Skats possibly seeing the Pop-Tart. Ooh. Pop-Tart bumping. Skats calling Pop-Tart out on that. Rightfully so. Now the entire thing's crooked. However, due to the rules of the tournament, they cannot rectify this and must play the tower as is. Skats taking an incredibly aggressive and risky maneuver. But Skats getting correctly hyped. That's allowed. That is okay. But Pop-Tart meeting Skats' challenge, providing an even less strong base. Skats performing option denial for Pop-Tart. And now they are forced to enter the spiral of death, where one block is placed upon another one block higher and higher. This comes down entirely to how they made their early game options, and also who is simply unluckiest. I cannot think of a better way to end a Jenga tournament at a Brawl tournament than with something named the Spiral of Death. Skats pulling out the piece and continuing the Spiral of Death. Pop-Tarts taking the longer term option, but choosing to... Will he continue the Spiral of Death? Peer pressure says yes. Pop-Tart's getting out of his chair the first time this match. The crowd is saying no, but Pop-Tart's heart is saying yes. And it works. Skats put into a terrible position. And November Rain, this Spiral of Death is definitely deadly. It has ended more games than anything else in this tournament. Skats taking the conservative energy depleting maneuver, taking out a middle option, but deciding against it. I do not blame him on this. Now that the Spiral of Death is over, he has to play a longer game. But taking another middle block lower down. Oh, but he wants to put the block on the side. That will destabilize it. But he plays it safe, putting it in the middle and inviting another Spiral of Death. Pop-Tart. Pop-Tart taking a conservative option as well. His option denial this game has been very strong. Skats having to scan the tower more than anything else. More than any other game, because he is simply running out of options and rehashing his long-term plans. Skats finishing the first full row of this set. But Pop-Tart finding a loose middle piece. But can he pull it out? He cannot. Or simply decides against it.
I'm awake now. Probably won't go to sleep until like 3.
That was allowed in this tournament. That has already been addressed. So you can take blocks from any point of the tower except for the top row.
See, this is what starts to get exciting. Like, building out was exciting.
Taking blocks from the top might seem good in the short term, but long term as it goes along, and when you have to place more and more blocks on top, it shows its true colors as a very terrible long-term decision. And this game has proven to be very long, very exciting. Taking the middle option again. The bottom level is starting to look very barren. Let's see if I can move the camera to show more. Oh, that's it! That's it! Pop-Tart wins! This time for sure. Scat's putting up a valiant effort. 2-1. Pop-Tart's favor. Fantastic last game. Lots of technical plays. Lots of change of tactics. Beautiful.